Hello, I'm Dr. Scott Watier.
And I'm Tommy Welling, and you're listening to the Fasting for Life podcast.
This podcast is about using fasting as a tool to regain your health, achieve ultimate wellness, and live the life you truly deserve.
Each episode is a short conversation on a single topic with immediate actionable steps. We cover everything from fat loss and health and wellness to the science of lifestyle design.
We started Fasting for Life because of how fasting has transformed our lives, and we hope to share the tools that we have learned along the way. Hey everyone, welcome to the Fasting for Life podcast. My name is Dr. Scott Watier, and I'm here as always with my good friend and colleague Tommy Welling. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Hey Scott, how are you?
Doing fantastic, my friend. Excited for today's conversation. We're going to be having a conversation from an article that came out of levels.com, and it was on their blog under the nutrition, the explainer category. And it says, are long-term fasts or water fasts good for you? So we're just going to have a conversation around some of the nuance and kind of highlight some of the pros and cons. And then we are true believers, if you've been listening to us for a while, that fasting is an absolute game changer and simplifier for ultimate long-term weight loss, ultimate health outcomes, and truly getting a handle and getting you off of that diet roller coaster, that weight regain train once and for all. So it's going to be a fun conversation today. If you are new to the podcast, thanks for giving us a shot. Thanks for listening in. If you want to know more about Tommy or myself and our stories of how fasting transformed our lives, head back to episode 0, episode 1, give it a listen. And in about 45 minutes, you'll know truly why we believe fasting is so powerful, especially in this obesogenic food noise-filled environment that we live in. Hoping you'll glean some action out of today's episode as well. We want to give you some action steps that you can put into your day-to-day fasting lifestyle today, starting now as you're listening to this episode. If you're a long-term listener, thank you again for being with us. We are so grateful for the likes, shares, rates, reviews, downloads, etc., and happy to be on this fasting lifestyle journey with you as well. So, Tommy, let's get into the conversation and the kind of the framework of this. Are long-term fasts or water fasts good for you, right? So, when we talk about fasting, let's just talk about the basics. Water fast versus, dry fast. Can you have sparkling water? Can you put lemon in your water? And we see this in our Fasting for Life community in the Facebook group where people pose a question like that and somebody comes in and goes, no, you can't do lemon in your water. It makes me more hungry and it could trigger an insulin spike. And we did the math on lemon water once back in the day, and it was such a small amount of actual caloric intake that I would, if I had a lot of money to bet, I would put it on the fact that, I think you're okay putting some lemon in your water if you're fasting. So we don't want to talk about all those little kind of decision trees and are we dogmatic on certain things, but we want to talk big picture about ultimately why most people come to fasting. It's to lose weight, feel better, get healthy, prevent the need for medications, reverse disease processes, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, cardiovascular risk, etc. But most importantly, it's you want to lose weight. So we like to talk about this in terms of a long-term forever number. So what is your big, hairy, audacious goal of weight loss? And then what does it look like when you get there? Because if you used a diet strategy to get you to the goal, and the statistics are pretty clear that 95% of people give all of the weight that they lost back between 2 and 3 years, and that 75% of the population is overweight and obese, which leads to chronic lifestyle, all-cause mortality conditions like diabetes and cardiovascular disease, etc. We know that at the root cause of that is insulin and blood sugar management and metabolic function. The stats don't lie. That if it was simply getting the weight off that got the result, then we wouldn't have the staggering statistics of the State of the Union of how unhealthy we are, especially here in the States. But we have all of these tools and resources and technology and the medical system that isn't ultimately getting us our results. So we can lose the weight, but we can't keep it off. So fasting to us is the solution for so many because it stacks the deck in your favor. So when we're talking about fasting, we're not talking about long, extended, multi-day fasts. Typically anywhere from 16 to 18 hours all the way up to 1 to 2 times a week if you've got substantial fat to lose. Because again, if we're looking at the end goal, you've lost 30 pounds, 50 pounds. And now you're this new person sitting at at your goal, you can't continue to, air quotes, diet your way through maintenance. You can't continue to do consistent stacking of fast or fast cycling or adapting a fasting lifestyle to maintain the changes. You have to have this adaptation of like, okay, what does my fasting lifestyle now look like once I reach my goal? And so many of us get lost in the process. And one of these things that we're going to highlight today is this concern over muscle loss, right? But before we get into that, water-only fasts and common types of longer fasts. So we're talking about, if you want a clear indication and a visual of what this looks like, grab the Blueprint to Fasting for Fat Loss. It's in the show notes. It's a free 20-page PDF. It'll give you some visuals of some intermittent fasting schedules that we use consistently to help people get results. And then for us, transition into that maintenance mindset of how we're going to keep the weight off for good.
Yeah, we want to be starting with the end in mind. We want to be reverse engineering this for long-term sustainability, which is absolutely the reason why we look at it differently from how I always looked at my diet when I was on the diet roller coaster, which was I'm dieting to get the fat off. And once I do that, I'm not going to be dieting anymore. And so that was literally the kind of like simple underlying thought that I had for my diet and weight loss or fat loss situation. However, what we know about becoming one of the 5% that actually keep the weight off long term, the weight loss managers, they call them in the research, is that we have to be looking at it like, what is my lifestyle? I'm building a lifestyle that I want to stick to, that I want to use for long-term health maintenance, weight maintenance, longevity, metabolic optimization, all of these things, keeping my blood work in line, just maintaining good high energy levels and just overall functional health. And the way that I do that is by knowing that the tools that I use to get me there, to get the weight off and balance out my blood work and all of these kind of things and lower my risk of cardiometabolic diseases or whatever your family history is, they're the same tools. You're going to be using them, but in a different way. You're going to be adapting them differently for maintenance, but not to think about it like I'm doing this now and I won't be doing this once I reach my goal. So I think that fundamental kind of first step and differing that sets you up for a much better, higher likelihood of long-term success right there.
And one of the things there's a lot of myths out there, there's a lot of fear out there, but regardless if you're using a caloric restriction method, eat less, move more, calorie in, calorie out method, or you're adapting a more fasting lifestyle, the leaner you get and the more body fat, the lower your body fat percentage drops, the chance of muscle loss goes up because you don't have as much fat stores. And this is why we say, get the weight off. Let's get it off. Let's use fasting. Let's use 24 to 36 hour fast to stimulate that fat loss and keep you motivated and keep you excited. And as you get closer to that maintenance goal, then yes, we absolutely need to taper back the extended fast.
Yes.
And you need to start opening up your nutrition window because you can't use this. You can use the same fasting tools, but not in a different application. Just like the diet analogy earlier, when you get to maintenance, you're not going to, still be in that same level of caloric restriction that helped you get to your long-term goal. So you have to reintroduce food and back off your fasting windows and all different types of things. But if we look at the calorie in, calorie out model, you can expect to lose anywhere from 20 to 25% of your weight loss. So if you lose 10 pounds, about 2 to 2.5 pounds of that can or may be lean muscle tissue.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it can, extreme caloric deficit, low protein intake, no exercise component to your ultimate sustainable weight loss goal can increase that up to 35% in certain populations. So 3 to 3.5 pounds of all of that weight you lost could eventually be lean muscle tissue, the leaner you get. So one of the things in this Levels article that prompted us to have this conversation was around this idea that Dr. Peter Attia has changed his tune on fasting, right? And what he says is fasting should be done strategically, and here's the catch, particularly in lean people. Well, duh.
Sure, yeah.
Thomas DeLauer, same thing. That dude runs around with an 18 pack, right? Like he's lean. He's doing like he's working on endurance, he's working on output, he's working on performance. So you're running around at 6-8% body fat. Yeah, why would you be doing extended fast? We're going to talk about this 75% of the population that has 20, 30, 50, 80, 100 pounds to lose.
Yeah, most mere mortals.
Yeah. That where we have those fat stores, which will help preserve the lean muscle tissue. So when we look at it kind of from a fasting for life standpoint, we want to give you the tools and kind of really just once and for all kind of put this muscle loss conversation in its place. So go ahead, Tommy.
I was just going to say that I think part of that, at least for me, started with one of my big fears around fasting when I was first getting started was definitely around the muscle loss, because most of my muscular and strength gains had been gained in the gym since teenage years, but also with a focus on fat loss. So I really wanted to ramp up my output in the gym so that I could accelerate the fat loss process at least as much as I wanted the strength and muscular gains. I wanted both, but that's how my priorities looked. So the idea that I would start fasting and then I might be erasing a lot of these long-term strength gains and decreasing my muscle mass, I knew that metabolically speaking, that's a bad idea. The more muscle you have on your body, the more efficient of a calorie burner you are, the better overall state of health you're going to be in at a relative same weight. If you add muscle to that and basically exchange it for fat, you're going to be better off metabolically and long-term health-wise speaking. So the other thing, to be more specific, would be the protein timing. This idea that you have to be getting in a certain amount of protein, 30, 40, 50 grams, right after your exercise, within like a 60-minute anabolic window. That's something that's been debunked over the last, like many times over the last couple of decades. But that is something that I heard a lot growing up and during my time in the gym. And that was one of those things that kind of pushed me away from fasting as well, because I wasn't thinking about it as like what's my daily average protein intake? What's my weekly average protein intake? I was thinking about it as this highly sensitive little anabolic window that, again, has been debunked. And just knowing that, I think, can be a confidence booster to say, well, okay, I can go after strength gains and I can lift weights, I can do resistance training, and I'm not just sensitive to this, small little protein window afterwards. So if it is another 12 hours until my nutrition opportunity, because I'm working out at 6 a.m., but I'm not having food until 6 p.m. tonight, that's okay. And that my body's not going to care. My daily and weekly average of protein intake is going to be good, and I can still focus on this fat loss and preserving muscle mass too.
So let's talk about the benefits of fasting, right? And Dr. Attia even mentioned, he was on the Metabolic Optimization podcast with Thomas DeLauer that we mentioned. He used to regularly complete these longer fasts, but he was a lean individual, right? So there's no need to be doing it. But he even says, if you're talking about someone who has 35% body fat and insulin resistance, I think fasting is a very effective tool, right? And it's okay because they're probably going to lose very lean muscle mass because they're probably going to lose more fat mass along the way. And that's what we see in the research. So we're going to share some of the research articles here that back that claim up. And this is something that I've seen personally in my DEXA scans and in my body composition changes and what we see inside of our coaching with our coaching clients that are working on that maintenance equation after they've lost the weight. We really want to focus on that, building that lean muscle tissue. So if we're just looking in a fasting vacuum and you're not prioritizing protein like you just said, or adding in resistance training to stimulate muscle growth, then you're probably setting yourself up for long-term failure. But if you've got 80 pounds to lose, we don't need to work on building the consistent fasting. We don't need to work on those levers right now. We need to start getting the weight off, getting you excited, keeping the motivation up, helping. We just did a podcast episode last week on hunger, help mitigating the hunger and allowing all those wonderful benefits of fasting to kick in. So when we start fasting, the benefits are your blood glucose and insulin are going to come down. And within 12 to 36 hours, your body's going to start burning that fat stores and producing ketones. Ketones have been shown to help curb appetite, improve insulin sensitivity, reduce inflammation. And It's ultimately going to increase your circulating ketones. It's going to lead to more moderate weight loss, which is going to keep you excited about the process. Because I don't know about you, but has anyone started a new, I'm going to eat less, move more, workout, I'm going to work out 5 days a week. I'm going to I'm going to eat, 3 to 5 small meals a day. And then
Mhm.
you lose a couple of pounds and then you hit the dreaded plateau,
Right.
right? Or you lose
Yep.
10 pounds, you got 30 to lose and you're stuck, right? Fasting really is going to allow that the acceleration and the excitement to stay, because we know that willpower is finite, and when you get unmotivated, then you don't take the actions that you need and form the habits that you need for long-term sustainability.
Mhm.
So you're going to see things like decreased lower blood pressure, fatty acids markers in your liver are going to balance out. You're going to see improved markers of glycemic control, glucose, insulin resistance, A1C. We've done countless episodes on all the metabolic benefits of fasting, but specifically around this muscle preservation conversation, we need to understand that we do need to stimulate muscle growth. So the worst thing you could do is fast, not prioritize protein, and not have some form of movement or exercise in your long-term plan.
Mm.
So what happens when you fast, just within 24 hours, you're going to see growth hormone go up. This is your body's muscle guardian. It can even go higher during more extended fasts. This isn't accidental. It's your body's primary mechanism for preserving lean tissue during periods of food scarcity.
Mm.
So let's give the body a little bit of credit here, because the fear of muscle loss during fast is largely unfounded when you understand the sophisticated metabolic adaptations that your body's doing. The body's way smarter than us. Thank the good Lord above, I don't have to tell my heart to beat, because I would forget.
All right.
Right? Your body is intuitively smart. So when growth hormone is suppressed during fasting, and there's an article from the Diabetes Journal here, when growth hormone is suppressed during a fasting period, muscle protein breakdown increases by 50%. But when growth hormones levels are maintained, muscle protein breakdown also remains controlled.
Mm.
So when you fast consistently and your body is losing the body fat and stimulating the ketones and your glycogen depleted, and it has a quick light switch pathway to tap into those long-term fat stores, you're actually protecting your lean muscle tissue. Now, if you are a lean individual, yeah, you don't need to be doing extended fast longer than 24 hours. I would argue you don't need anything more than probably 14 to 16 hours of fasting.
Yeah, because you need that nutrition opportunity window to be long enough so that you're
Yeah.
consistently bringing in all of the calories, all of the nutrients that you need, because you don't have long-term fat stores to supplement that, like
Yep.
somebody with fat to lose, right?
Yep. And here's the secondary thing. As you become glycogen depleted, insulin and glucose come down, your body enters ketosis. This is incredibly efficient at preserving muscle tissue. This is the beta hydroxybutyrate. This is the primary ketone. This directly decreases leucine oxidation and promotes protein synthesis in skeletal muscle, even at very low ketone concentrations. So we'll hear this. Oh, my ketone levels, man, I can't get anything over like a 0.7 or a 1.2 if you're tracking ketones with the Keto Mojo. That's actually an ideal window for weight loss and muscle preservation.
Yeah, it's great.
When you get
Perfect.
into those higher levels of ketones, now you're into therapeutic ketosis and your body's restructuring and autophagy's kicking in, and it can be really powerful for healing, let's say, psoriasis or gut dysfunction or metabolic disease. But that's like not the general use case if you're trying to lose weight and become more healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. So on ketones, being within that nutritional ketosis kind of window and range means that it's not just all about higher is better. And I
Right.
think that yeah, going into starting to measure ketones, we hear that a lot. Like, I just want to see my ketones come up. Higher is not better. Let's get into that nutritional ketosis kind of range, and then let's just spend most of the time there. And your body's going to be in a fat adapted kind of state. It's getting into ketosis, so that means it's using mostly long-term fat stores for fuel, and that doesn't happen until you've had a chance to burn through the last meal that you had,
Yep.
or the last meal plus any stored glycogen that you also had. So depending on the size of your meal And if you've been sporadically fasting, or if you've been more consistently fast cycling, that's going to determine your relative state of glycogen depletion or repletion. So this might be, if you had a small meal last and your glycogen stores were already depleted, might just be a few hours to burn through that last little mini meal that you had. But if you were completely glycogen full and you had a bigger meal, you could be looking at 24, 30, 36 hours, 40 hours even before you even need to switch into long-term fat stores. And that's
Yep.
part of some of the counterintuitive nature, but also what kind of drives some of the sporadic results, but also sporadic use and physiologically imbalanced use of fasting that can actually lead to more of the diet roller coaster type of results and mindset, even when you're using fasting, which we
Yep.
absolutely want to steer clear of.
Yep. Absolutely. So we've got growth hormone protective, and we have ketones. Ketones are incredibly efficient at preserving muscle tissue. Right. So getting into that transition into ketosis, using not just that periodic fasting, but the consistent fasting efforts is going to get you there quicker. You'll get the benefits of autophagy. You'll get all of the benefits, especially if you're prioritizing protein and doing some form of either low intense steady state activity. So like walking with a weight vest, even just walking if you're completely sedentary, it's a weight bearing activity.
Yeah.
And then adding in resistance training 2 to 3 times a week, resistance bands, dumbbells, nothing crazy, not 3-hour workouts in the gym, but just getting your body moving and stimulating that protein muscle synthesis when you're prioritizing protein.
Yeah.
So what does the research actually show? So there's a couple things we want to highlight here is strength preservation despite weight loss. This is a groundbreaking study in Nature 2025 that found that maximal leg muscle strength was completely preserved during 7 days of fasting,
Yep.
despite measurable lean body mass loss. Well, wait a minute. How is that possible? So here's what happened. The lean mass loss was measured by DEXA scans, included water, glycogen, and other non-muscle components, not actual contractile muscle tissue or the true skeletal muscle tissue.
Right.
Look at bodybuilders, right? And we know that it takes a lot of time to build lean muscle tissue. It's not something that just happens overnight. Right? Just like you wake up and you fast for 24 hours, you're down 4 pounds. You didn't just lose 4 pounds of fat.
Right.
That's not how it happens. It takes years for that to accumulate. So we know that anywhere from 1 to 1.25 to 1.5 pounds of lean muscle gain over the course of 30, 60, 90 days is the typical growth rate. And then it slows down after that initial 30 to 60 day period. So we know bodybuilders that do bulking and cutting, they do those cycles for 3 to 6 months, and they may put on 6, 8, 10, 12 pounds, but they're optimizing for muscle growth.
Yeah, and using hormones that actually speed up the process.
Yeah, and supplements, all the stuff. So are we saying that you can maintain the strength, but you've lost muscle mass in a 7-day fast? That's not physiologically possible.
Right. It's an experimental procedure limitation.
Right.
So just understanding that water's moving around, even seeing that immediate drop in water weight because insulin comes down, because aldosterone levels signal the kidneys to actually let go and excrete the water because the glycogen doesn't need the water since you burn through the glycogen, is key to understanding why you would look at this and go, oh, okay, well, muscle mass seems to be smaller after 7 days of fasting. The muscle cells haven't changed. There's been no time for atrophy to actually happen. So it's really, really encouraging that the strength is still there after 7 days. Although after having been through multiple 7-day fasts, I can personally attest, yeah, I felt stronger than when I started the fast, not weaker. So it makes intuitive sense, but it's good to see that there's an understanding behind those buckets. But even the fat cells have water within them. So as you're burning through and decreasing the storage of your fat cells, it's actually a water shifting mechanism if you look at it within a DEXA scan or another advanced tool like that too.
Yep. And there's more studies. So the intermittent fasting, recent research on intermittent fasting shows remarkable results. Participants reduce body fat while maintaining comparable skeletal muscle mass to control groups. So you're enhancing the protein synthesis. That's why we always say prioritize protein, prioritize protein, prioritize protein.
Mm-hmm.
It enhances that protein synthesis signaling when nutrients are reintroduced. So you may see a slight decrease initially in those longer extended fasts, which again, we don't recommend for everyone. You don't need that to ultimately lose weight consistently day over day, week over week, month over month. And you're getting the repetitions at those real life examples on how to make better food choices and how to, not go to the ultra refined, processed, highly obesogenic food world that we live in. So you're getting the repetitions through this consistent fast cycling, not periodic fasting, but consistent fast cycling for fat loss. Mm-hmm. So you're going to see that stimulated muscle growth, just like the anabolic window. It's the consistent consumption of protein day over day, week over week, not just this, I have this anabolic window that I need to get my protein in to keep my muscle mass in check, or my lean tissue loss in check. So when we look at some of the studies, we've mentioned a couple. We mentioned the 7-day fast. There's also one out of the Journal of Nutrients in 2020, the effects of intermittent fasting combined with resistance training on lean body mass. Here's the key: combined with resistance training on lean body mass. Mm-hmm. Body fat mass or percentage was significantly reduced in 5 of the 8 studies, and lean body mass was generally maintained. When one study actually showed an increase in lean body mass.
Yeah. So, we've heard the argument that you have to be in a caloric surplus in order to build lean body mass. But think about it this way: when you have long-term fat stores on your frame, that can become your access to a caloric surplus. So typically, as we go through a major fat loss transformation, we have less of a stress of gravity on our frame and on our skeletal system, so that we actually have less of a need for so much muscle mass. So typically we have a kind of a proportional decrease that happens over time, which is where you mentioned the weight vest, and that, so like rucking or using a weight vest can be an extremely effective way at supplementing and mitigating that loss right there, where you continue to get the stimulation on your skeletal frame even while the weight comes off of your body. So that's a great way to think about it too. You can actually supplement the process there.
Yep. And then that one study we mentioned earlier, this is out of the Journal of Diabetes, the protein retaining effects of growth hormone during fasting. And it inhibits that muscle protein breakdown. So consistent fasting efforts, elevating your ketones, getting the glycogen out, allows your body to tap into fat stores more efficiently, which then allows you to have the substrates needed to protect and maintain that lean muscle tissue.
Yeah.
So as you're getting closer to your goal weight, we want to just, again, begin with this end in mind, that we want the metabolic flexibility. So what are you looking at in terms of short-term versus long-term fasting? The research is clear. Short-term fasting, 18 all the way up to 72 hours, with proper nutrition, proper protein paste, focusing on protein, prioritizing protein, maintains muscle mass while still providing the metabolic benefits. Even extended fasts show muscle strength preservation when approached correctly. But the key here is, and we've been saying this for a while, is combining fasting with resistance training. Because resistance exercise helps retain muscle mass. Not you're only getting the growth hormone protective benefits from the fast, but you're also going to be getting the muscle stimulation from the resistance training. And that's going to help change that body composition while you lose the weight. Because the fear of muscle loss during fasting is based on that kind of dated understanding or misinterpreted application of the research. And your body is far smarter than we give it credit for. It has sophisticated mechanisms to preserve that muscle tissue. You're not in a starvation study, right?
Yeah.
Right? So are you ready to trust your body? Are you ready to, once and for all, get off that diet mindset, use fasting as the optimizer to reduce hunger, increase ketones, increase autophagy, keep the momentum up? Because with fasting, you can see the scale move a lot more quickly than just a, eat less, move more calorie in, calorie out model. And that's ultimately what we want for you is to know that you're preserving your lean muscle tissue, and that when you get to maintenance, it's a different conversation of how you maintain that, but you're still going to use fasting. You're just going to change the duration in the application.
Yeah, and I think a good way to kind of wade yourself into the waters, especially if you're a little concerned about muscle loss, or that's been kind of one of those fear or kind of self-talk points for you, like it was for me in the beginning. Give yourself a couple of movements that you can do as kind of a litmus test for how you're feeling strength-wise. And you can do that. And as you get into your next fast, you can continue to do it and put a test, for yourself and see how you're feeling. Because seeing that, especially if you're using like an at-home bioimpedance scale and you see some of those shifts in the BMI, in the body fat percentage, those short-term wise, especially if you're just getting started with fast cycling and you see some good drops in the scale, some good drops in weight, it could also show lower muscle percentage, lower skeletal muscle. So remember that those are from shifts in water, shifts in hydration, make those numbers change. So give yourself a little bit of a litmus test where you go, yeah, you know what? Okay, I heard the guys, they said to be kind of skeptical about these, especially with some of the larger shifts when I'm just getting started, or getting back on track. So let me go try out my strength. Let me see how I'm feeling, because I think that there's a very good chance that you're going to feel very strong. You might even feel stronger than when you started the fast, or from the last couple of weeks, especially if you're doing some deliberate resistance training. And that could be just the confidence booster that you need to keep going and keep burning through some of the fat and not get a little, one of those seeds of doubt that then can kind of hit your confidence and make, give you a little pause on your next fast. So we want you to have the mental fortitude and the mindset to be able to keep doing what's working when it's working, so you can absolutely crush your long-term goals.
Yep. And if you're leaner, closer to your goal weight, you don't need to be doing the extended fast. We want to encourage you that, yes, that was the tool or the vehicle that got you there. I still do a long 5 to 7 day fast 1 to 2 times a year. I love the way I feel. It re-anchors me to my purpose. It promotes autophagy. There's the clean out studies, with Walter Longo, showing that it's just kind of a great system reset. It's a mental challenge. It's a spiritual challenge, right? But most days now, I'm looking at anywhere from a 16 to a 22-hour window. I'll do a 24-hour fast every Sunday because it just simplifies my week and my day, and it sets me up for a great, productive, busy Monday. So this is a journey for each and every one of you, and that's why we do and have the resources we have, is because we want to customize this and tailor this to you. So just remember, as you get closer to your goal weight, you're going to want to make sure you're focusing on resistance training and prioritizing protein, so you can keep that lean muscle tissue. And as we age, that's going to be the freedom card to staying vibrant, staying mobile, being able to not deteriorate, as we see in this country here as you go into your 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, but giving you the freedom to be able to be vibrant and increase your longevity and truly get the results you want. Now, in terms of fat loss, let's hit that consistent fasting effort. Let's prioritize that protein. Let's start getting some movement in. Let's keep the momentum and the energy high, and just put this muscle wasting loss conversation to bed once and for all. If you're looking for more support, we have our last challenge of the year coming up, November 19th. If you want more resources, head to the show notes, click the links. We've got the Blueprint to Fasting for Fat Loss, our sleep guide, our insulin assessment. If you got questions, feel free to reach out. But Tommy, appreciate the conversation today, man. And as always, we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Bye. So, you've heard today's episode, and you may be wondering, where do I start? Head on over to thefastingforlife.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive fasting tips and strategies to maximize results and fit fasting into your day-to-day life.
While you're there, download your free Fast Start guide to get started today. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and we'll be back next week with another episode of Fasting for Life.